All right, welcome to another video. This one is rosters that I think could change. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are definitely some rosters that need to change if they want to make like top 4 regionally and even be able to at least contend in worlds, you know, or even majors. This is just for NA. If you guys want me to do EU, I'll also do that. I'll probably do that anyway since I'm doing NA. EU, there are some teams that I genuinely want to see formed. By the way, this is also teams that I personally want to see. You know, they're probably not going to be good teams. I don't really know ball like that, you know. I just see players, how they play, and how I think they would work together. So this is kind of that. This is teams that I think should change or not. Like NRG here, I think that they should stay. If they were to change for any reason, I could see Atomic being replaced for like a first killer or an LJ. That's the only way I can see them change. I don't really see Beast Mode or Daniel kind of splitting, but maybe Daniel could go to like the Ultimates replacing Chronic or something. That's the kind of change I see for Energy. If they, I don't know, get out top 8 in Worlds, then maybe they should either start training a lot more and practicing doing a lot more scrims, or they should start thinking about doing a team change. But yeah, that's it for NRG right now. But I mean, yeah, I don't really think they need any change right now. They're NA's last hope anyway. And then for the Ultimates, I changed Chronic out for Frosty. Again, I don't know ball, and this is my personal opinion. The reason why I changed Chronic out for Frosty is because I feel like Frosty in the right, like when he's balling out, I feel like he could be better than Chronic. When he's balling, he's one of the best defenders and one of the best shooters. Now, the reason why I don't think Frosty is at the top right now or where he needs to be is kind of like his playstyle is kind of trolling. Like he does a bunch of unnecessary stuff, you know. He tries to be mechanical all the time instead of, you know, going back to the fundamentals. But that's the reason why he's so good, is because of all of his mechanics. But he does it too often, you know. He's like, instead of just getting a basic reset, he'll do like a Muri reset or something like that, that kind of like takes away from the play or slows it down a little bit, which kind of is contradicting itself, because he's a very fast player as well, and he can like shoot the ball. So I feel like with someone like First Killer and LJ, they're both like the best of him. First Killer is the fundamental, get the ball where it needs to be, and he's like a leader. And LJ is like a very mechanical guy that his mechanics get the ball to the net and whatnot. So with the both of them teaching him, it's like a third player that does the best of both of them. So that's why I feel like that team would be very good. I'm very high up on Frosty and Eris. Those are like 2 players in NA that I'm like looking at that I think they're going to be very good. Same thing with Tawk. So that's who I have for Ultimates right now. Just one change, which is Frosty for Chronic. So moving down to Space Station. Right now, I currently like Scribbles and Reveal. I feel like those 2 are very good. They're also very good grinders. They're usually at the top of the leaderboards for NA, being 1, 2, or 1 and 5. I never really see them below that. And they're always grinding, which is very good. And as for Kofor, I like Kofor, but I don't really think, I think we're like upselling him too much, you know. Like he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but I feel like he doesn't really fit with the team. He's kind of like a slower, methodical, demo heavy player, which is true. That's what he is. And then you have someone like Reveal, who's a very fundamental guy, plays a great second man to third man. He gets he's like I don't know, he's like a Daniel, you know, not flashy, but does what needs to be done, you know. And then Reveal is kind of like I don't know, he's not really the shooter, but he's also like another fundamental guy. And then you have a demo heavy player, so they don't really have like a striker like that. They have like fundamental players. So they don't really have a striker. They just have like 2 midfielders that aren't really attacking midfielders, which is why I think Frosty worked great with them, because he was that shooter. But because of what he had did and all the other situations, you can go look it up for yourself, they kind of replaced him and brought in Kofor. And they did great with Kofor, which everybody then was like, oh yeah, this is a very amazing team, but we haven't really, you know, talked about how they could be bad. And I'm not really high on Kofor. I'm not like, oh, Kofor is the next greatest player. I haven't seen that quite yet, you know. Like, yeah, they won a regional and all that stuff, but they're gonna need to do more than that to justify that. So instead, I brought in Diaz, who has that one's like prowess. He likes being solo and dribbling the ball and scoring, which is kind of a substitute for Frosty, because on complexity, Frosty and Diaz are kind of, you know, the ones trying to be the shooter, and they're constantly like doing 1v1s and all that stuff. So when you have two fundamental players like Reveal and Scribbles, it then opens up more space for Diaz to do what he likes and to be able to like integrate his ones more. Or he can transition into a threes main, or like a threes player, kind of like Daniel, and have like Scribbles step up and be their shooter, so that he can take a little bit more leeway off himself, having to be like a second man kind of thing. So that's what I think Diaz can bring to that team. But he changed his name to Kenzo, so he's now a Kenzo instead of a Diaz. So that's what I like to see from Kenzo. I feel like he would fit pretty good on Space Station. I feel like with this team, they would still maintain their fourth, maybe even move up to a third in the rankings. I feel like they're good enough with a Diaz instead of a Kofor to make majors, regionals, and AWCs and stuff like that. And then for Gen G, no hate, I've never been up on as high on Cheese. He's a very good player. He's a grinder for sure. This kid's always on the game, very passionate about the game, but I feel like he doesn't really mesh well with Justin and Magic, who are like two very mechanical players. But then you also have Justin, who's like a somewhat grounded player now. He's very mechanical in there, don't get me wrong, but I feel like he's a little bit more grounded. Magic Bear is the one that kind of, you know, is doing the mechanics now. And then you'd have Kofor, someone who's also on the ground, goes for the demos and creates opportunities for his two very mechanical teammates, you know. So that's why I have Kofor there. You know, Gen G would be, you know, they have an aerial, like Justin fills out both ground and air, so that's also good. And then you have Kofor, who would be on the ground looking for demos, creating opportunities. I feel like Kofor is more of a third man kind of player, you know. You have he just goes in, gets to the demos, does what he needs to do. Justin's also a big demo, so you could also have them two looking for people while Magic Bear's in the air, flip resetting and double tapping on people's heads. So that's also another very strong team that I have right there. So that, with that being said, that would be the top four right there. But the next team that I've made, I feel like it would actually be competitive in NA now, and that anybody could actually push up into that four with the current teams that I have made. So the next team that I have is Complexity, who've been struggling to get into that four because of the four aforementioned teams. So with the new Complexity, I've took away Diaz, obviously, and Frosty, putting them up higher. And then I have CRR still. CRR to me, it's like you have two fast players on Complexity with Diaz and Frosty. They want to 1v1, they want to do that. And then you have CRR, who's a very good threes player. He slows down the ball and kind of like looks for opportunities, goes for flip resets and stuff like that. So I've gave him Reddles, who also is like a fundamental leader, looks for opportunities. He's not a very, you know, selfish player. He loves to play with the team. And Calm, who's like a kind of Kofor player. Calm and Reddles have a very similar play style, which either could clash or it could, you know, bring them together. So that's what I was thinking with those two. And then you have CRR, who's kind of like them. So you kind of have like the old heads, I guess. Not really. They're not really that old. They're like 22. In RL, that's apparently really old though. But, you know, I have a very like fundamental veterans team right there. Now, in normal circumstances, you want at least two vets, one vet, and then two new young prodigies, mechanical or not, whatever. But I feel like with three vets, that could be a game changer since they know what to do. You don't always need mechanics to win. It does help, but at the end of the day, fundamentals and basic knowledge of the game and like all the land factors and whatnot can really set you aside from these new young guns. So that's what I have for complexity right now. And then as for Shopify Rebellion, I've took away obviously Reddles, and I've also taken away Two Piece. And with that being said, I brought in Andy and Hoxer. Hoxer will be that vet for the team along with Andy. Andy's kind of like a newer vet, I guess, but he's been in the game long enough. And then obviously the player that they will be mentoring or make sure gets to the top will be Wavy. So you have two, well, all three of them are very mechanical, but you have a mechanical veteran in Hoxer, and then a new mechanical 1v1 prowess player in Wavy, who I think right now I feel like he could mesh with any team kind of well. It just kind of depends on how their day is or whatnot. And then you have Andy, who's a very solid player, and people still rate him pretty high, so that's why I have him there. And then the boys, which is a team that I have very, very high. I already like the current roster that they have right now with Evo, Aqua, and Hoxer. They did very good. They were one game away from winning and going to Worlds. So I've replaced Hoxer with Eris. Eris is somebody that I've had like #1 on my list for like pros to look out for that aren't on a good team. Eris is very good. He's very mechanical and he knows how to slot the ball. So when you have these three extremely like mechanical players all together and you give them a little bit of time to mech together or to have a good chem together, they're gonna definitely be a team that can reach top 4 pretty easily. Like right now, Evo and Aqua need to stick together. They're two very good mechanical players that have what it takes. I feel like with any of those two, if you slot them into, like a Ultimates, Gen G, Space Station, they would work very well, and they would, still make the team just as good. And then with Hoxer, he was also very mechanical, but I feel like he's a vet that needs to, come up with a new team, tutor some new kids. So I brought in Eris, who's like a pro that hasn't really gotten a chance to be at a big team yet, but he's very solid. And I have another player just like Eris in EU who, when I make that video, I'll point out to you guys. So the boys is this team that I change or not, I think they're very good. And if they keep at it, because they played just for the LCQ. So if they like stick together and do what they need to do, I guarantee you that they'll be up there. And then Poab, which was Eris, Mech, and Andy, I took out, Eris and Andy. Mech is a very good player that's coming up. He's 14. I think he's the youngest NA prodigy right now. And then you have Tawk, who's the next, who's also an up-and-comer that, his stocks are just getting higher and higher. So with that, I placed two very mechanical up-and-coming players with Chronic, who's also a very mechanical, newish player to the scene. He's not really new, He's been in the game for some time, but he's not like a first killer or a beast mode who've been here for like a while. So that's why that team also right there, mechanical and very good. You have Chronic, who's up there with Ultimates, who are doing really good. And they struggle sometimes, but overall they do what they need to do most of the time. And then you have Talk, who's like a very good player. People are looking to get him. The more he plays, the better he gets, and the more people will want him. So that's why I put them there. And then you have Mech, who's also another player that's very sought after. But right now, I feel like both of them need to keep building their stocks, keep playing the game more, and just getting up there, and one day they'll get taken. So I feel like that's a team right there. Now, again, will any of these changes happen? Probably not. And also, I just want to say that this is before Worlds happens. So depending on how Worlds does, I might come back to this and see if the Ultimates do very good, I might, take back Frosty and keep Chronic there. If they do bad, then, I might have to keep Frosty there, whatnot. Same thing with a team like Gen G, or Space Station Gaming. Depending on how they do, I might take back some stuff. Even the new Shopify Rebellion. If they get, I don't know, if they get 8th place, we can keep them. But if they get less than that, then I would recommend, a team change or whatnot. Or maybe it's because they haven't stuck enough like stuck long enough for them to be, you know, a world contender or whatever. But anyway, next is Carl, which is Talk's team right now. So obviously I've already taken Talk and Calm. So with the new Carl, I feel like this would just be, you know, another pickup teamish that they'll get like top 16 to top 8, but you know, never really kind of more than that. 2-piece, Cheese, and 5-up. Again, 5-up is a very solid player. 2-piece is a really solid player. I think he's the best player on Shopify Rebellion. And then Cheese, who's also really good, but I feel like he doesn't really fit with Gen G. That's why I have him here. You have, you know, 2-piece, a kind of vet. You have Cheese, who very much wants to learn the game. You know, I could switch Cheese with like a different team and he'd probably slot just because of how much he wants to learn. I feel like he's willing to give up certain things or like learn certain things to be with a team. So he's kind of like a teammate that you would want. And then, you know, 5-up, who also, you know, kind of wants to win. So that's kind of a team right there. I don't really have a good explanation as to why I made that team, but it's a team right there. And then the other teams, I just thought they should stay, you know, Parth, Crispy, and Zanil. I don't know, Creams, Hockey, and Gyro. Maybe I could have like, yeah, I don't really know. With the last 3 teams, I don't really know who to put where. Lion Blaze is still very good despite how long he's been in the game. It used to be Adam, Oath, and Knight, but Oath and Adam have parted from him. So maybe like, maybe just this, like Parth, Creams, and Lion Blaze, Crispy, Hockey, and Panda, and then Zanil, Gyro, and Knight. But of those 3, I think Zanil, Gyro, and Knight would be, because Zanil and Gyro have played when they were on Dignitas with Arsenal. Knight, him, Oath, and Adam were like a very good team and they stuck together for a while. Crispy is very good, especially when he's playing with Simas. And who I think it was with Eris. That team was also very good. Parth, Creams, and Lion Blaze, I don't know. I don't even think those guys have like ever played together, even as like a pickup team or whatever. But yeah, this is what I have for NA right now. I'll probably make this document public for you guys to come and edit. Here are the current players in NA right now that have earned money and are actively playing. Again, this is Diaz, just for you guys to know who that is. And then here you can like go here, should change, whatever. I was gonna do like a before and after, but then that would have been too much work, whatever. So, you know, you can do should change or should stay, and then, you know, put the new team names and then who you've actually changed. So in simplicity, these are the guys that have changed and this is the team that they're on. So that being said, well, I'll come back to this after Worlds and see if there's anything I need to change. I'll probably do the same thing for EU sometime soon, just so that I don't do it after Worlds. So, but I feel like there's a lot more changes that need to happen in EU than NA. For instance, Vitality. I'm not up on Exotic. I never was. Even when he won Worlds, I was never a fan of him or his like play style. I feel like he's a person that like I won't get into it. But yeah, I'll again, this is my opinion. This is just what I want, what I think should happen. Obviously, ain't nobody gonna be listening to me or whatever. You guys can just watch the video and have your own takes. I know my last video of the predictions. I'll make another one after to see if I was correct or not. But some people were like, did you even watch EWC? Clearly you don't know what you're talking about. You only got 3 likes, blah, blah, blah. These are all for fun. If you guys want to chat shit to me, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I don't really care. But just know that this is my opinion, so don't take it too seriously. I want to see what your opinions are as well. Make your own roster document and like share it to me like on Twitter or something. And I'll have a look at it, see whose teams I like better or whatnot. But with that being said, I'll see you guys when I make the EU version of this, and then I'll probably also release that document for you guys. And if not, just wait or remind me in the comments to do that, and I'll get on that for you guys. With that being said, I'll see you guys later.